Welcome to the live. I'm Kristen Johnson. I'm a film producer and a writer and a pleasure activist. And what I do aside from producing films and writing them is I help Black creatives, specifically writers and creatives, filmmakers, learn how to use pleasure to amplify their creative work and also the impact that they want to make on the world through their creative work. Because as Black creatives, our voices, our stories, our work, our art is really powerful and can create change in the world. So I help to facilitate that through pleasure, as exploring pleasure as a liberatory practice. But we're gonna bring a little bit of that into today. And what I want to talk about today is how to actually replenish yourself after you have been doing like intense creative work. So the reason I want to share this is because this has been a super intense writing week for me. So I had 2 different scripts that I was working on and script deadlines within a span of like 4 days. And it meant that I was spending like hours and hours and hours on end at my computer trying to crank out story and just like the writing itself. And then there's the actual, here's how I need to change the story. Here's this plot issue or character issue that's coming up. And it's a lot of mental power. So it gets very depleting. And I want to talk about that a little bit because sometimes we think that just because you're like sitting down or you're sitting and doing something on your computer, that it's not still depleting. I read an article recently that said that the actual capacity you have to do something within a day, like the length of time, actually depends on how intense that activity is. So if you're doing something that's very mentally and psychologically intense and involves a lot of like basically mental processing, your capacity to do it is really maxed out at like 3 or 4 hours. So it's kind of like playing with that myth of like the 9 to 5. So thinking about that, when I'm having these like 8, 9, 10 hour days of doing intense mental processes with these stories, which is also creative, that's very, very depleting. So for me, one of the things that was happening was, one, I was having trouble even just thinking straight. I was having trouble making decisions between like, even like dinner. It was like me and my partner were talking about dinner the other night and like, what are we going to eat? And I was like, I can't even figure out what we should eat right now. And like, we had options. It was like this option or this option. And I was like, I don't know. I literally can't make a decision. Like, I can't think straight. The other thing is like, I get physically tired because I'm using a lot of mental power and I'm not actually replenishing myself mentally. So it starts to deplete my body. It's also why sometimes what happens with me, this may happen with you, is when I am writing a lot, or I'm doing something that's really intense mentally, is I'll end up like wanting to snack a lot. And it's not because I'm using myself like physically a lot. It's not like I'm working out or exerting myself, but it's like my body's trying to replenish my brain, but that's not necessarily how that works in the moment. Like what I really needed was to take a break. But that's something that happens. It's like I want to snack because my body is like, hey, you need fuel. And it's not even necessarily my body that needs the fuel. It's my brain that like needs the fuel. So when it comes to like exerting yourself a lot creatively or in like a mental way, because some people's creative work is physical, like you're doing, like crew on a film set are on set for, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So that could be like that's very physically demanding. But when you're doing something that's mentally demanding, sometimes we don't think about how you have to replenish yourself or reset and why that's important. Because doing multiple days this week that were like 8, 10 hours of writing and like intense writing because I had a deadline to hit, it's not sustainable. Like I said, if your capacity to do something mentally intense is only 3 or 4 hours, it's maxed out at 3 or 4 hours. When you start doubling that, going over that, it's not sustainable long term. You can literally only do it for so many days before you just like, you're like, I can't even think straight, and like you're just gonna be zapped. So we want to avoid getting you to that place, because then you really have to take time to like reset. And sometimes you don't have the time to reset. Sometimes you're just you still have to keep going, and then you're really wearing yourself down. But operating as creatives, as writers, as people doing the work that we're doing, we want to do it in a way that's sustainable, in a way that's efficient, and a way that can last long term. And that means sometimes implementing different like practices or tricks. So one of the things what I like to do is share how you can actually avoid hitting that point of depletion when you're doing work, and then also like what are ways to replenish after. So I'll start with like replenishing after. For me, what I actually found the other day was, because it's so mentally grueling writing, that for me doing a task that is simple, that's straightforward, that doesn't involve a lot of like brain power, actually helped to reset me, because it got me doing something else, and it got me out of like thinking. The wheels are going, right? But I wasn't just like laying down or something. I was actually like engaged in something. And it's a way of kind of like resetting your brain. So for me, I think I was like putting together a cat tree or something like that. I was putting together a cat tree, and then I was like getting laundry together or something, like really kind of simple tasks, but tasks that get me, my brain being used in a different way instead of like this one way that was just getting depleted. So that's one thing that helped. So engaging yourself in another activity, especially a physical activity. Hey! So that's one thing that helps. The other thing is not just like a task, like I'm trying to put something together or I'm doing like a chore, but actually physically getting in your body, which sounds kind of weird because like physically you are in your body all the time, right? But mentally we're not. So getting in your body, like for me, embodiment is not only something that helps to reset my brain, but it's also something that helps to fuel my creativity. Because when you are embodied, when you are in your body, you're feeling in your body, you're connected to your body, you are able to access more of your own wisdom, your own intuition, your own just like all of the different tools and all the different things that are there in your body for you, instead of just being up here. There's like the whole rest of your body, right? And all of like the signals and nerves and everything that is connected to that. So deep breaths is a really easy way to get embodied. It's a really easy way to like, get out of your head and like sink into your body. And it also helps you to turn off some of that like thinking, if you're having trouble turning off the thinking from mentally intensive work. So deep breathing, just taking even like 2 minutes to breathe as fully as you can and get as empty as you can. That's one thing that helps. Doing very, very simple stretches. Like I used to be a yoga teacher. I used to do body work. So like for me, like down dog, even just one of my favorite ones is actually just doing like a side bend. So just doing side bending is a great way, because it not only gets you in your body, or gets your body moving, but because we're not constantly doing side bending through the day, it's a lot of like forward and back and like hunching. It gets your body into sensation that it hasn't really been tuned into for, the whole day. So getting into sensation is getting you embodied, and also it can feel really good. So things like that, or stretches or movements that feel good, that's also really beneficial. And I'm always about like feeling good. Like as a pleasure activist, it's like, how can you find pleasure in this moment? So like connecting into movements, breath, into stretches or anything like that feels pleasurable in your body, so that you're not only, again, connecting to your body, but you're connecting to your body in a really pleasurable way, which is great. So if you're just jumping on, I am talking about how to replenish after really intense mental creative work, so that you can continue doing creative work in a long-term sustainable way. So like I said, simple tasks, that was the first one, is like a simple task or like a chore, because it gets you doing something that isn't really mentally intensive. Also like actually deep breathing to help you get embodied, get in your body. And like stretches or easy movements that feel really good. And then when you're doing that, really feel it, like really be in the feeling of it. Like, oh, what is it like to like stretch my side right now? What is it like to breathe into that side of my body while I'm doing it? Like that really tunes you in, and it really helps to draw you out of like all the high up here mental processes. So those are things that I like to do. Now, how do you stop yourself from getting totally depleted? Now, these are things that I actually need to practice more. So when you're doing mentally, again, this is primarily mentally intensive activity that I'm talking about, because that's, as a writer, that's what I do, is like a lot of mentally intensive activity, or creative activity. So for me, and again, I need to practice doing this myself, but the things that really help are, one, taking breaks. So working in increments, working in like 25 or 30-minute increments, even 1 hour increments, and then taking a break, 5, 10, 15-minute break. Maybe not too long, because some people get distracted and then they start doing other things. You just kind of got to gauge it for yourself. But even a 5-minute break, so going for like 25 minutes, 5-minute break, or maybe going for like 55 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. That way you're breaking up all of this mental work into periods of time that are more sustainable. So what studies have found, and you can actually look up the Pomodoro method, is that your brain can only go at like a high, I can't think of the right term. It can only really go like go hard at something for like 25-minute increments, and then the capacity starts to decrease. So like your efficiency, you could do it hot, like really efficient. You could do it really well for 25 minutes, and then your brain starts getting slower. So when you work in 25-minute increments and you take a 5-minute break, it gives you that time to reset. It gives you that time away so that you can go into another 25-minute increment of doing the work. And that means that the time that you're actually working in your creative project, whatever it is, or in this mentally intense activity, you're more efficient with it, you get more done with it, and then you get that break to reset. So working in increments and taking breaks is a really, really good way to stop yourself from getting depleted. Another thing is in that break, or even separate from that, is I need to do this more, but take movement breaks. So even if in that 5-minute break in between is actually moving. So like step away from what you're doing and get in your body. And that shifts your brain into a different mode, and so that's something. I mean, I know you have to like shift back into like whatever it is you're doing, but you're just taking a 5-minute break and getting in your body. It helps to, all the things that I said earlier, if you're watching, it helps you to reset and to get access to all of the wisdom that your body actually has, which you can then bring forth into your creative work. So that's why that like embodiment piece is important in the middle of doing all of this intense mental activity that you might be doing. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I think is, if possible, I mean, if you're doing like I was this week where it was like all day long doing writing, but if possible, is to do whatever your work is, if it's writing or if it's drawing or whatever it is, to do it at the time of day when you're most in that creative mode. So like me, I write best in the afternoon and evening. So there was like one day this week that I was able to kind of wait till afternoon, evening and do my writing then. But really the rest of the week, it was like all day. Like as soon as I got up and started working, it was from then until like 8, 9, 10 p.m. But if you're not in that kind of like hot deadline situation, then one of the things that can help you is to do your work at the time of day that you are most efficient at that work. Doing if you're more creative in the evening and you can do your creative work in the evening, then try to set it in that time of day, because that's when that energy and that process in your brain, like your brain will actually work better at that time, versus like another time of day where like you can still get it done. Like I still got a lot of writing done in the morning, but it's not going to be as efficient, and you might, it may not be as productive, but you're still going to get it done. So those are 3 things that will help you to really kind of replenish I guess the last one isn't really replenishing in the middle, but those are things that will help you to keep from getting depleted so that you don't necessarily have to do this intense replenishment after. Thank you guys for coming on. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be posting the replay as well. And I want to let you know that I have a couple of freebies. So I'm going to share with you my workbook. I have a free workbook for Black creatives called Create Your Future Vision. Since we are talking about creating, and when you're creating, it can feel like, oh my God, when am I going to get to my goal? So Create Your Future Vision is a free workbook for Black creatives. You can get it at the link in my bio, or go to kristeniris.com/vision, and it will walk you through all of how to create a vision, get clear on your vision, and start bringing it into your everyday so that you make more strides towards that vision and what it is that you really want from your life and your creative work. So it's really good stuff. It's good stuff. So you can go click the link in my bio or go to kristenharris.com/vision and you can get it there. Make sure that you follow me and turn your notifications on so that you get notified when I go live on Instagram. And I will see you guys in the next live.